my name is Sophia, and welcome to The Show Must Go On. So, sadly today is my last video about School Spirit Season 2. So, after all these weeks of doing deep dives into the episodes, I will now be doing something to kind of wrap up this whole little chapter and just kind of do a review of the whole season. Let's just get into it. First of all, I just want to say on the day that I am recording this, it has officially been announced that they have been renewed for season 3, which I'm so happy about. Okay, so first I will be talking about some of my general thoughts of the whole season. So I loved this season. I thought it was a great follow-up to the first season. Like I wrote on here, I honestly can't even decide which season I like better. I think I might prefer this first season just a little bit, just because, I don't know, I always tend to be very attached to, like, the original seasons of shows. However, like, honestly, it's, like, very close. Like, it is not one of those things where, like, the first season was, like, way better than any of the other seasons. Like, this season measured up very well. Because the thing is, it's also kind of hard to compare them because they feel so... I mean, they feel like the same show, but they also are pretty different because, obviously, the first season is more like a murder mystery, whereas the second season is more paranormal. So it's kind of hard to, you know, compare, but they're just both so good. And yeah, like I said, I loved the supernatural focus. I mean, obviously we knew going into this season that it was gonna be more like that, obviously, with the whole Janet reveal at the end. And I just think they did it so well. Like, it was very interesting. And I thought there was great character development throughout the season. Very interesting, like, perspectives and storylines throughout it. Great music was used once again, just like in season 1. And yeah, it did a really good job at keeping you hooked. Like, I literally remember after finishing episode 4, where it, like, showed that Mr. Martin had gone into someone's body, I literally threw a pillow across my room because I was so, like, mad that I had to wait a whole nother week to find out who he inhabited and everything. And I also wrote, I've talked about this multiple times, but I literally think episode 5 of this season may be not only the best episode of this season, but maybe even the best episode of the entire series so far. Like, it was so good. So now I'm going to be talking about the plot. So, like I said, I thought it was very engaging. It was a great way to continue the story with, like, the narrative of the whole Janet situation and how, you know, that also kind of made us find out more about the other characters' backstories with, like, the hellscapes and everything. I thought it was very interesting. And yeah, I loved getting to finally see, you know, Simon not have to be, like, alone in, you know, knowing what happened to Maddie. It was so cool to finally see Xavier and Claire and Nicole, like, actually know what was happening. And I said also Simon's commitment to Maddie was once again chef's kiss, because he is just such a good friend. Like, he does not let anything limit him from helping Maddie. And yeah, I loved the new plot lines that they added for each character and how they added some new characters. I thought it was really nice, because sometimes in shows I feel like they can get too carried away with, like, I don't know, just trying to, like, add too many new characters in. Like, Yuri and Quinn, they weren't like, oh my god, we couldn't have done this season without them, but I definitely think they were a good addition to it, because they did give some insight and helped them with the mystery a little bit, and they also served as really great purpose to further Charlie and Rhonda's storylines, so I really liked that. Okay, so now I'm going to be talking in depth about my thoughts on each of the characters this season. Okay, obviously starting off with Maddie. I said her and Wally were very cute, and I like how she would comfort him, specifically in that one scene where he was, like, getting all, like, upset that he couldn't, like, do more to help her, and he's like, did we just have our first fight? But she's, like, very comforting to him, you know, and she's like, honestly, like, I don't need you, like, saving me all the time. Like, that almost actually makes me cringe more. So, you know, she just was really sweet to him, and yeah, I love Maddie and Wally, so I thought that whole thing was really cute. I do think Maddie sometimes could have handled the ghost's feelings a little bit better, but she did also do this in season 1 a little bit too, so it's not like out of character for her, but, you know, obviously it's understandable that Maddie would be, you know, very set on figuring everything out, whatever, in the situation that she's in, but there are times where you're kind of like, okay, Maddie, like, you need to, like, think about how the others would feel for a second. Like, when Wally came out of his, this was, like, the one time I didn't like the way she acted with Wally, was when she would just be like, okay, what did you see? What did you see? And she didn't even, like, comfort him or just be like, oh, like, you're probably, you know, going through a hard time right now. Like, I don't know. So that was the only thing. I loved her vulnerability in the pool scene. I mean, first of all, that whole pool scene was one of the best things in this show. Like, we don't always get to see Maddie being, like, super, like, you know, talking about, like, her insecurities and stuff. So it was, like, really sweet to see her just, like, get emotional and talk to Wally like that. But yes, I also don't love the way she treated Simon in episode 7, you know, how she kind of took him for granted a little bit. I did think it was a little out of character for the way that she was just kind of like, okay, Simon, then, like, just go, like, whatever. Like, I don't know, the way that she was, like, very just kind of, like, dismissive of him, I thought was, like, a little bit out of character. I love to see her growth from season 1 of her emotional attachment to the ghosts, you know, like, we have come so far from, you know, the first episode of the first season where she, like, just wanted to get out of there so bad and, like, did not care about any of the ghosts, to obviously now, like, she almost didn't even go back into her body when she had the opportunity because she was so attached to them now. So I think it was really sweet seeing how she formed such a close bond with them. Okay, so now talking about Wally, my favorite. I love his dedication to Maddie. Like, he's just so dedicated to her. He never backs down, very much like Simon. I did think his little freak out at Yuri in, I think, episode 2 was, like, a little weird and, like, felt slightly out of character for him, but I don't know. But I also can see it, you know, because he was just, like, feeling so frustrated that he couldn't, like, do more for Maddie. He just had so many funny moments. Like, he's such a, you know, comedic relief. Yeah, once again, the pool scene. Oh my god, the way that he is so, like, the things he says to Maddie when he says the thing about, like, you know, yeah, some people are destined to do great things and some of us, you know, we carry the small gifts. And the Let's Dance scene was also probably one of the best scenes in this series, even though it didn't even really have anything to do with the plot, but, like, it was just amazing. And yeah, I loved, like, you know, when he had that talk with Charlie, and once again, he was so sweet to him. He told him, like, he would flatten anyone who tried to hurt him, and, like, you know, talked about how much he's changed and grown since when he was actually alive. I did see some people say they were kind of disappointed with that, because in season, they said that, like, in season 1, they kind of liked that they kind of, like, went outside of the stereotype of, like, an 80s jock being, like, homophobic and, like, mean, you know? So I know some people were, like, a little disappointed that they did actually kind of imply that he was like that when he was alive, but I don't know, like, I kind of feel that way, but once again, I also get the idea that Wally was more just, like, a follower and maybe not, like, an active bully. It is kind of realistic, so, you know, but I like the way that, you know, what really matters is that he's changed and he's so kind now and everything. Yeah, I said not great thinking on his part, you know, of wanting Maddie to stay, but I also understand, like, I mean, even though I am one of the people that, like, wishes she could have stayed because I just love the ghost so much, but, like, it would be kind of a lot of him to be like, just leave your life, you know, for me. I know he didn't actually want to do that to her, he just, you know, that was just his emotions. Yeah, I just love how he defends his friends too, like, not even just Maddie, but all of them, like, the way that he, you know, he really does show what he said to Charlie when, like, they're in the scars in the last episode, and he's, like, defending Charlie from the football players and everything, so it's just so sweet, and yeah, I loved Wally this season, once again. So now Charlie, my other favorite. I do have to say, though, I was kind of sad that I feel like Charlie wasn't, like, as big of a character in this season as he was in the first season. Like, I honestly feel like he was almost, like, the lead ghost last season, like, besides Maddie, obviously. I mean, obviously they were all kind of equal, but I do feel like he was, like, the one that we saw the most because, you know, he was, like, well, first of all, he's the first one we saw, you know, like, he was the one that was, like, showing Maddie around and everything, and then, like him and Maddie were kind of the closest, like for the most of it, obviously until she like went out with Wally and everything, but like we got so much of like his backstory, you know, with like the Emilio thing and everything. I don't know, like, so that's the only thing. I am kind of sad that I feel like his role in this season wasn't quite as big. Like, I do think Wally was the more main ghost, if I had to say, which, I mean, obviously I love because I love him too, but yeah, I don't know, like I did just kind of miss him being a little bit more like relevant to the story. Not to say he wasn't relevant to the story, but like, I don't know, I do think he took like a little bit of like a backseat in the story, but I mean, you know, I also get it because it was just more focused on like the whole Janet thing this season. But of course I loved seeing him go out of his comfort zone with like asking out Yuri, and you know, this was his first relationship that he had had since Emilio, and we started to see him become more comfortable with his sexuality and everything. And yeah, of course it is kind of sad that, you know, at first at the reunion he kind of like got upset and like shut Yuri out, but obviously like I also understand, you know, he's gone through a lot. But obviously he made up for it in the end, and we got that great first kiss scene and everything, and we got the little ghost reference with the pottery and everything. Rhonda's another interesting one where I low-key feel like she also didn't play as big of a role in this season as she did in the first season. Like, actually, if I had to say, I think she played the least role in this season, like, of the three main ghosts. I don't know. I'm gonna be completely honest, I wasn't the hugest fan of Rhonda this season. I have a complicated, like, relationship with Rhonda because even, like, when I first watched season 1, I didn't, like, love her at the start of it. I mean, I know that's kind of the point, is, you know, she's supposed to be a little, like, tough at the beginning, and then she like softens up. I mean, of course I always like felt bad for her with like what happened to her and everything, but then I did, you know, really start to like her, you know, like near the end of season 1. I feel like she was kind of frustrating. Like, once again, I completely understand, you know, she's gone through some really traumatic things, and you know, so I understand when there are sometimes times that she kind of lashes out and she may not even, you know, kind of realize she's doing it at first. It's almost just like a trauma response. So I understand that, but like, I don't know, there was just like so many times where she would just get like so mad. And like when she told Maddie that she like told Mr. Martin about, you know, how Maddie could talk to Simon, and you know, I know Maddie forgave her and that was just because she was like feeling lonely and stuff, but that wasn't great. And then yeah, when she would like, because Quinn was so sweet to her, but she would, like, low-key be so, like, mean to Quinn. Like, I mean, I know obviously in the end they were, like, super sweet to each other, but I feel like throughout a lot of the season, like, she was kind of mean to Quinn, and I was like, Quinn is literally, like, the most, like, cinnamon roll person ever. Like, why are you being mean? Like, when she, like, lashed out at her about, like, the Foolish Girl song, I was like, first of all, like, how was Quinn supposed to know? Like, she didn't have malicious intent, but also, like, she had never even listened to the full, like, she's been here 60 years and she never even listened to the full song to actually see if, you know, what she thought it was about was true, you know? Like, so I'm just like, I don't know, that just kind of annoyed me. But like I said, I did really like her friendship with Quinn. Like, I liked, you know, that they kind of gave her someone that she was closer to, and, you know, who she started to open up more to and form more trust. And yeah, I liked specifically that scene where she, you know, talked with Quinn on the bleachers. And once again, I feel like that's honestly probably one of the most, like, vulnerable scenes we've seen of Rhonda. But now on to Simon. So obviously in the beginning it was really sad to see him, like, get super mad in his room and, like, really, like, questioning his sanity. Like, and once again, like, he's so brave, so dedicated to Maddie. Like, I love that. And I honestly, like, his character really, like, grew on me this season. I don't know why, but for some reason I, like, was sometimes annoyed by him in season 1. Like, I did really like him, but there was just, like, kind of like Rhonda, there were times where he would, like, kind of lash out at people. Like, I know he was going through a hard time because he was the only one that, like, knew Maddie was dead. So it was kind of hard for him to, like, hear Nicole still, like, have hope and everything. But then he would just, like, yell at her and stuff, and I'm like, bro, like, she's already grieving, like, her one friend, and now you're, like, you know, making her grieve another friend, practically. Yeah, so I don't know, there were just, like, times in season 1 where he, like, kind of bothered me, but I, like, grew to love him so much more this season. Although I do think he could have been nicer to Xavier at times, like, because, like, Xavier, you know, he's, like, just really excited finding out this information about, you know, Maddie being a ghost and everything, and he wants to, you know, talk to her and everything, and Simon is just so, like, stop asking me all these questions, and I was like, hold up, like, what? Like, wouldn't you be happy that finally someone, like, you're able to talk about it with someone, and, like, they're excited to talk about it? Like, I don't know, I thought that was kind of weird. I also just said he should not have let Janet out of his sight, at the cabin. I mean, I know she came back, obviously, but that was a little stupid. That was, like, the one stupid mistake he made. And yeah, like I said, I felt bad for him when Maddie was kind of, like, taking him for granted. I can't believe he really, I mean, I can believe it, because it's kind of, you know, he is so dedicated to her, but I can't believe he really sacrificed everything for Maddie, you know, because now he's stuck in Mr. Martin's scar, and obviously we don't fully know what happened to him, but I don't know how they're gonna get him out of that, so he has been very loyal to the end. So now we have Janet. So Janet was very interesting to me because they kind of pulled, like, a 180 on, like, what you thought about her character, you know, because obviously in the beginning she seemed very creepy a lot of the time, and we didn't really know if she was evil or not, but we kind of, like, they kind of made it seem like she was, like, evil in some way. I mean, obviously, I feel like we all kind of knew that Mr. Martin was probably more of the villain, but they kind of made it seem like in the beginning, or, like, for most of the season, that she was kind of evil too, because, you know, she did all this really crazy stuff, like, you know, committing arson and, like, backing up into Xavier, and she was really aggressive at, you know, in the dinner scene and everything. But then, you know, once they revealed everything to us, it kind of, like, it like, gave me such a different perspective on, like, the whole season and, like, the way she acted, and it really made me realize that, oh, that whole time when she would do these crazy things, it was really just because she literally, like, didn't know what she was doing, and, like, she just needed to escape Mr. Martin in that moment, and she just went into Maddie's body, and then she was like, I have no clue what to do, you know? And she hadn't been alive since the 50s, so she was, like, you know, she was just lost, and obviously she was also, like, traumatized, so that also explains why she acted a little strange at times. But I really liked the way they did that. Like, I liked the way that they kind of made it, like, you weren't sure, you know, what her intentions were. And yeah, I thought it was just so cool to, like, hear about her backstory, you know, after, like, it's crazy to, you know, think back to season 1 where, like, literally all, like, we just heard Janet's name, like, a couple times, and then to see now, you know, obviously how big of a role she had in season 2, and getting to learn everything, and getting to see, like, some backstory of Mr. Martin was very interesting, but of course, also, you know, her whole story was also very heartbreaking. The whole thing of her burning her grandma's house down is still a little confusing to me, though, like, because, you know, that was, like, very aggressive, but I guess, once again, the only thing I can think is just that, you know, she was just so traumatized, like, being back in, you know, this house and having all these memories of her dad and everything, and, like, I don't know, I think in that moment, maybe she, you know, wanted to, like, die and be able to be stuck in her grandma's house instead of the school, but then at the last second she just, like, chickened out. But I don't know, but that was still, like, a little confusing to me, because I was like, I don't know, like, that had, like, an evil vibe, but then she wasn't evil, so. And yeah, she was very terrifying in the kitchen with Simon, which is, like, also a little confusing to me, but once again, I guess I kind of get it, because I think she was just kind of, like, on edge, and, like, didn't know who to trust, and, like, was obviously very scared of going back to the school because of Mr. Martin and everything. But obviously, yeah, she turned out to be good. Felt very bad for her, and, you know, she was just very strong, and, you know, I loved when she explained the whole thing in episode 7, and I love the fact that she was actually trying so hard to keep, you know, all the ghosts safe from Mr. Martin. And yeah, I thought she had a really nice apology to Maddie in episode 8, and yeah, it's crazy to see, you know, them, like, reconcile and everything after, like, you know, everything Maddie went through, you know, in season 1 and everything, but obviously, once again, Janet didn't have malicious intentions, so it was sweet to see them come together. Okay, Mr. Martin. So, he's such a coward. Like, the way that when he tries to go into Janet's exit door, and it's like, oh my god, bro, like, that's not even your door, like, get away from there. He's just so, I just said creepy as hell, like, aggressive, like, oh my god, when he's, like, pushing Janet into the scar and forcing her to go in there for extended periods of time, like, he is just terrible. And he's also, like, low-key kind of dumb when he's in Mr. Anderson's body. Like, he doesn't even, like, learn how to spell the guy's name right, or he literally just goes right up to, you know, the house and he's looking for Janet as if, like, no one can see him, just, like, looking like he's, like, breaking into this house. And yeah, he's just so abusive and obsessive, terrible until the very end. Yeah, what can I say? He's terrible, and, you know, it is just weird to think of now, looking back on season 1, it's like, the fact that he was just sitting there that whole time, it is just, like, weird, because, you know, when we saw that flashback where he was just, like, with Janet in the car, like, seemed sweet, and, you know, he was very encouraging of her dreams and everything, and so it's just so sad, like, to see how much his desperate nature to, you know, go back to life or cross over or whatever, like, really, like, changed him, you know? I mean, unless he kind of was like this the whole time in life and we, you know, just didn't really get to know it. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about Claire. So I just have to say, she was such a baddie this season. Like, I loved her so much, which is so funny because I really, like, didn't care for her in season 1, you know? I mean, obviously for most of it, she, well, first of all, was literally a suspect. And also, like, you know, was kind of, like, mean and not great. Like, even when she started working with them, like, she still wasn't, like, the nicest. So, the fact that, like, I really grew to love her in this season is, like, kind of crazy. Yeah, like, she just changed so much, you know? She became a lot nicer. She became so dedicated to the group. And, you know, I like that she, you know, she quit Cheers. She got away from those, you know, annoying friends. And I also felt bad for her, you know, when they gave that little, you know, explanation for, like, how her home life is. I mean, I know we kind of got that in season 1 too, but we got, like, extension of it in this season. And, you know, like that scene where she was crying and talking to Simon on the bleachers. And she also just was so smart. And even though she, at the beginning, she was kind of the most, like, removed from the group, and kind of, like, an outsider, she ended up, I think, becoming, like, the most valuable asset to the group, like, second to Simon. Like, they were, like, the two ones that were, like, so brave and so smart and, like, came up with all the good plans and everything. Like, she came up with so many good things, like calling the sheriff when, you know, Mr. Martin was breaking into the house, slashing his tires and everything. Like, she just came up with so many good ideas, like, on the fly, and yeah, I really grew to love her. So now Xavier, yeah, I also, like, really liked his character development because, you know, of course I didn't really like him in season 1, you know, because he cheated on Maddie and everything. Even though, you know, I know they kind of redeemed him in season 1, you know, like, he started being a better person as the season went on, but he was just, like, so much better in this season. Like, I mean, obviously it's still not cool what he did to Maddie, but, you know, he also is a teenager, which, you know, not saying that, like, completely forgives what he did, but, you know, he's young, and you can see that he really felt bad for his mistake and really regretted it, and, you know, you saw that. I feel like that guilt made him really dedicated to wanting to figure this out for Maddie. Yeah, I like how he kind of explained how he feels like he puts up this, like, tough exterior. Also, I just loved the way that, you know, I feel like they kind of increased his, like, relevance to the show with, you know, him temporarily dying at the hospital, and, you know, that whole scene where he, like, sees himself and everything. Like, that scene was one of my favorites. It was so cool, the way it was shot and everything. Like, I just loved it, and it was so cool getting to see, like, another one of these, like, purgatories in Split River outside of the school. And I also loved how Spencer McPherson, who plays Xavier, I loved how he kind of played some, like, ambiguity at times of, like, you know, you couldn't really tell sometimes if he, like, could see the ghosts or not, because I don't know, like there were sometimes in the school, like that scene where he's in the library and he's like blankly staring and it almost looks like he's like staring at Maddie. And he kind of talked about how he kind of played it like, so there's a little bit of like, you're not sure like if he's like starting to sense the ghost after like what he went through or not. And I think that was really interesting. And obviously I liked, you know, finally getting to see him apologize to Maddie in the hospital at the end. I thought that was really nice. And, you know, I hope we get to see a little bit more of like reconciliation between, I mean, I don't want them to get back together, obviously, but like, you know, just reconciliation as friends between them in the next season. Okay, so now we have Nicole, which I'm gonna try to, I don't want to get too negative, but first of all, before I say anything, this has nothing to do with the actress who portrays Nicole. I have nothing against her. She's a very good actress. It purely just has to do with the character herself. I just find Nicole so frustrating. Like, I feel like she's so rude to so many people, and like, I mean, I know it's a lot to like believe in ghosts all of a sudden, but she was just so rude to Simon when he was like trying to tell her about it. Like, she drove away and almost like left him stranded. I mean, I know she ended up letting him get in the car, but I was like, that was rude. And then like, you know, just the way that she like got super mad at Xavier when she thought that he knew, you know, that they were texting the whole time. And like, that was just so weird, the way that she like got all mad at him and then like left him with Janet alone. Only thing I like didn't care about this season was like her whole plot with Xavier. Like, yeah, I said the only good thing that she did this season that I liked was, you know, her idea to visit Eugene, and obviously that helped a lot, and that was a very smart idea. And like, even when they're at the dinner scene and she just flat out says like, Eugene Bergstrom misses you to Janet, like, I think that was good because I think that really quickened the pace, you know, of getting Janet to know why they were there and everything. So that was good, but that was probably the only thing that I liked that she did in this season. Okay, so now talking about our new characters, so Yuri. I'm gonna be honest, like, when I first, like, found out that he was gonna be a character in this season, and then, like, even in the very beginning, like, the first few episodes with him in it, I was, like, kinda confused at, like, what his, like, relevance to the plot was gonna be, and, like, I don't know, I was kind of worried in the beginning that he was kind of just gonna, like, be there, and like he wasn't really gonna be like that interesting of a character, but I was pleasantly surprised because I ended up loving him. Like, he was so sweet, and like obviously he was very intelligent, and he did kind of help them, you know, figure out some stuff because he knew all this like medical stuff because of when he would like diagnose himself with like anxiety and stuff when he was alive. And yeah, like I love how sweet he was to Charlie. I love how dedicated he was to him, even when, you know, Charlie kind of shut him out at the reunion and everything. He was still so sweet to him. And I also really liked his whole backstory with him having anxiety, because I also have anxiety, so it was just like really cool to hear, you know, a character talk about that. Yeah, I really ended up loving him. And so now our other new character, Quinn, she was so sweet and like so funny. It was really cool, you know, getting to finally meet one of the band kids. I do kind of wish she did a little bit more. Like, I feel bad, but I feel like she wasn't like super relevant to the plot. I mean, of course she did make that big discovery in the end with like finding the paper that Janet wrote about trauma as energy. So obviously that was big, but like that was kind of it. I mean, obviously also, you know, the thing with Rhonda. Like, I do like her, but I'm not like obsessed with her. I don't know, because I just feel like she wasn't really in it that much. But, you know, I'm excited to see if they kind of include her more next season, and I do think she's a really sweet character. So now talking about Mr. Anderson, and when I first saw that he was in the season, I was kind of just like, why is he back? Like, you know, he got fired and everything. So like at first I kind of thought that he was like kind of pointless to the season, and like when he was talking to Sandra and everything, I thought he seemed kind of like sketchy and weird, you know, especially after everything that happened. But obviously once they had, you know, said that Mr. Martin went into someone's body, I was like, oh, okay, that's why they brought him into this season. So obviously I thought it was really cool, you know, the way that they integrated him into this season. And like he had such a, you know, interesting character arc, because obviously he's such a like complicated character. Because I just love how he ended up actually being very crucial to this season, kind of, and kind of comforted Maddie after, you know, Maddie was upset about her mom. I thought it was really sweet. And I loved his little like confrontation with Mr. Martin in the end. I loved the way that they used him to get through to Mr. Martin and make him emotional, because, you know, he knows what it feels like to be a teacher and to love teaching and everything. And yeah, like, I just thought it was so cool the way that they showed parallels between Janet and Maddie and Mr. Martin and Mr. Anderson. Like, and I also just thought, you know, his actor did such a good job portraying Mr. Martin as Mr. Anderson. Like, he was so good at that, and he was really good at doing his mannerisms and everything, and it was really freaky. And then Sandra, I mean, obviously I don't have, like, too much to say about her, because, I don't know, like, she didn't do too much this season, but, I mean, of course, it was, like, nice to see her finally kind of happier for a little bit. I mean, obviously that kind of got disrupted for a little bit once they kidnapped Janet and everything, but, you know, just even getting to see her have a little bit of hope, you know, when Maddie finally came home. I mean, I know it was Janet, but still, that was nice, obviously, after everything she went through. But I was just so mad when, like, no one said anything to her, like, after they took Janet, and they had her worrying. You know, we saw her kind of relapse a little bit, and it was so sad, even though, like I said, I mean, it wasn't super surprising, unfortunately, but, and of course, it was really sweet getting to see her finally reunite with Maddie in the end. Like, I just hope we get to see some more of her next season, and, you know, see how she will change now that, you know, the real Maddie is home, and see if she will start to recover from her drinking problem and everything. Okay, so now I just have a quick slide about, like, the other characters in this season who weren't, like, a super huge part of it. Like, the sheriff, I mean, you know, I don't really have much to say about him except for that it was interesting in the end, seeing him start to kind of believe, maybe, you know, the whole story with Maddie being a ghost and everything because of what Xavier told him, and then how Sandra says, like, Maddie hasn't, it's like she's been a different person, and then he's like, like, you know, so I don't know, like, that's kind of interesting to see. If I'm hoping that they might, like, expand upon that in the next season. Okay, Diego, I literally just said pointless. I'm so sorry. Like, I guess he wasn't completely pointless, because he was kind of, you know, how they found her at the school, because he went to the school that Janet went to, but I don't know, like, that was kind of the only thing he did. And, like, when they had him come back, you know, and, like, be there at the cabin, and then Claire tell him everything, like, I just thought that was kind of pointless. I mean, I know they were trying to, like, kind of also set up, like, a romance with him and Claire, but I don't know, like, I just really didn't care. Like, Dawn, who, you know, we got to see very briefly, you know, in episode 7, and I was so happy to see that. Like, I obviously didn't think we would see Dawn again. I love Dawn so much, like, I miss her, and I just love the way that people always thought, you know, she was so ditzy and didn't know what she was talking about, but then she was always the one who was paying such careful attention, and, you know, like, figured out why the lights flickered when they were in the hellscapes, and figured out, you know, what her key was. So now I'm going to be talking about some of the storytelling in the season, which I'm just using that term to reference, like, anything having to do with, like, music, editing, cinematography, visuals, anything like that. So first of all, once again, great music used throughout the show. But my favorite songs that they used, I love the cover of Let Go by Juliana Madrid. That was so beautiful in the pool scene, and that's, like, now one of my favorite songs. Like, I've listened to it so much ever since that episode. And using Let's Dance by David Bowie, once again, was just amazing. It was visually amazing as usual. I love, like, the aesthetic of this show, and kind of, like, the color scheme, like, the lighting and everything. Like, I don't know, I just love the way this show looks. It always has this very, like, you know, mysterious, like, tone about it. And then once again, you know, great cinematography and editing. Okay, I think this is like an unpopular opinion because I've seen a lot of people like hate on this on Reddit and stuff, but I actually love when they like do the shots where they like are looking straight into the camera. I don't know, I feel like it really adds to that kind of like mysterious, like unsettling feeling, because it's like kind of unsettling, like someone just looking directly into the camera. And I love how they kind of use a lot of like unsettling angles sometimes, which kind of like subtly gives you this like weird feeling without you even like realizing it. The way that they edited Maddie and Janet together, sometimes they would show, you know, Janet, but then like Maddie's reflection on like on the bus or something. And I also liked the way that I feel like they kind of used the color red this season. I feel like they really used it as like a representative color for like trauma and death in general and like hardship, because we got that scene of Simon in the car with Janet and there's all this red lighting over him, and like he literally did get trapped in a hellscape, which always has the red lighting, and he had the red lighting over him. So I thought that was really cool. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the mystery as a whole. I thought it was very engaging. Once again, I really liked the whole like hellscapes and keys thing. I thought that was really cool. I love how Janet's story played out. I thought it was very interesting. The only thing that I would say about like kind of the mysteries of the season that I thought was a little disappointing was, and I talked about this in my last video too, but kind of the whole reveal of like how the fire started and everything, I thought was like a little anticlimactic, because, you know, it really did just kind of end up being that it was Mr. Martin's fault, even though, yeah, it wasn't on purpose like some of us thought. I felt like it was like kind of obvious. I feel like they made it seem like it was gonna be like such a crazy thing that like none of us could ever like figure out, and then it kind of was like what most people thought. Also, like, they made the whole Eugene thing seem like so cool, and like you really thought that he was gonna like have this like huge information, and then like he kind of didn't. He didn't even really have concrete evidence. And obviously he was kind of wrong too, because like Mr. Martin wasn't purposely trying to kill Janet. I also thought the body swap was like kind of anticlimactic, because I feel like they made it seem like it was going to be like so hard to figure out like how to do it or whatever. And like I know a lot of people predicted that maybe it wouldn't even work, or you know, something like that. And then it really was just like really easy. And I thought like the whole thing with like, you know, Maddie finding like the exit door in Dawn's room and everything with that, like that really surprised me. And then the whole reveal, you know, with Simon at the end was so cool. I mean, once again, I did like kind of predict it, but I didn't like quite predict exactly, so it still really surprised me. And now I'm just gonna kind of talk finally as the last part of this video about kind of like the future of the series and what I think the next season is going to focus on. This might be controversial, I don't know, but I personally think that season 3 should be the last season of the show. Obviously, like, it breaks my heart to say that, because obviously I love this show so much and like I never want it to end. I honestly don't see how they could do more than 3 seasons, because I feel like you can't drag out any longer like the ghosts crossing over, you know, especially now that we've seen their doors. Like, you can't like act like they can't cross over, you know what I mean? I just feel like they have to cross over this season, and I feel like if they cross over, then the show's over, you know, because it's literally called School Spirits. Like, you can't have the show without them. They're like the whole heart of it. Because also, okay, I hate to say it, but I do think that shows kind of tend to have a little bit of a 4th season curse. Like, I always feel like shows start to not be as good once they reach like a 4th season. I'd rather it end sooner, but like end good, than just be like running on but like get bad over time, you know what I mean? So yeah, but anyways, I do hope we get it once again like in exactly a year, like in January of 2026. I know they did confirm that like it is going to be in 2026, but I really hope that it's not like later than January, because I really hope we don't have to wait like longer than basically exactly a year since when this season started. But so as for what I think we're gonna see in the next season, I mean, obviously we're gonna focus a lot on them trying to save Simon, and like I said in my last video, I do think that Simon is still alive. I think it's a weird situation where, because the veil was so thinned with everything that had happened, he was able to see the scar and walk into it, but then now I think his living body is kind of like stuck there right now. And then I also think the season's gonna focus a lot on, you know, like Maddie adjusting to being alive again, and just the overall mystery of like the town of Split River and the school, because obviously Mr. Martin kind of hinted at that. And then I think that, you know, we're gonna have to sadly see the ghosts cross over, or like I kind of talked about in my last video, someone kind of had a theory that maybe they'll even be able to come back to life or like leave the school, because like if Simon was able to go in when the veil was thin, maybe they're able to come out. So that's it for this video, sadly. I'm so sad that, you know, now we have to wait like a year for the next season to talk more about it, but I had so much fun making these videos, and I just want to say thank you to everyone who's, you know, been watching my School Spirits videos. I will be making videos about season 3, so stay tuned for that eventually. Now that, you know, School Spirits is over for now, I'm just kind of dedicating this whole channel to making videos about other shows, movies, music, more like analysis videos like this. After Ariana Grande's Eternal Sunshine Deluxe album comes out on March 28th, I will be doing a whole video on that. So if that's something that interests you, then stay tuned for that. So thank you all for watching once again, and I'll see you in next week's video. Bye!